This question is asked by Uber, and we want
Mhm.
to determine if Uber Eats has a net positive value for the company. So, how would you measure the success of Uber Eats?
At a very high level, I'd like to know what does Uber Eats do for its users? And, I'd like to clarify who the target audience is. So a little bit, if you can tell me, I would have a better opinion.
Yeah. So, from my understanding, Uber Eats is an app where you open it and you order food. In terms of delivery, they share
Yes.
the same drivers as Uber does.
Yes.
In this case, the passengers don't get into the car and it's just the
Hmm.
food.
Okay.
Um, and then the second thing for the audience is
Hmm.
likely going to be kind of like the either executive team or just someone that needs to understand kind of overall how well Uber Eats is performing as
Hmm.
like a function of the overall Uber ecosystem as a whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there any real, like in terms of users they're particularly targeting for Uber Eats, like, 18 to 24-year-olds or any segment that you have in mind?
No specific segment, I'd
Okay.
say.
And so now, thank you for clarifying, and I have a better understanding. And the other, like a little bit, if you can tell me a little bit more, and how, like Uber Eats is kind of doing the food delivery on top of Uber. Why is it important for Uber as a business? Are they targeting like revenue from it, better engagement? They want to retain their existing customers. What do you think is the reason that it's important for the business?
I actually would love to hear your opinion on this, but I could kind of add on and maybe guide you on that.
Okay. I think, what I understand for, I think as a business, I think Uber wants to give more value to customers, value to existing customers, so that, you know, they already have the Uber app installed, and so the same customer who was sort of going for taking an Uber ride can actually order food, because this is one of their pain points. So I think number one, as a business, they could seek to improve value they provide to customers and hence more revenue from it, because as you know they don't have to install many apps, and people would see the value and they would retain better. They would in fact use both Uber Eats and Uber if they're satisfied. So I think number one, providing more value to ultimately increase revenue. I think the other, this is like one. The other would be more engagement. So maybe more engagement from users. Like for example, you may not be heavily engaged, you may not take a ride every day, you may find it not useful, you may not need it, but you
Hmm.
know like you could do something else, which is order food instead, and so that you are better engaged with the app overall. So I think to improve engagement for users, they could go ahead and sort of think Uber Eats could help in engagement. And I also think they could grow their users using this particular features. It could impact user growth very positively, because a lot of people might might just love ordering food and not taking rides, but now they can just install Uber to do just eats, and they would have a new influx of customers coming in. So I think it could be growth, it could be improving customer value to get more revenue, or it could be improve engagement per user, I think, as
Awesome.
business.
Okay, cool. So we've narrowed down those three main topics, right? So I guess like if we were to dive a little deeper into this question, how do we measure and quantify each one of those three? And then where do you want to start?
Yes, I think I'll start with the improving customer value to ultimately increase revenue. So I think put it like it's a little bit. The goal is a little complicated, because I think once we have proven that customers are finding value, then we are saying that it is giving us revenue instead of just aggressively pursuing revenue. So like first we find that, and so customers finding value, I think metrics which I would look into are kind of design. I'd give you a couple of candidate metrics, and then we can think which is most closely representing what we think is customer value, and then subsequently revenue. I think I would do this. I would survey, like after we have rolled out Uber Eats, I would survey a representative sample representative of the population and try to understand the satisfaction score we are getting. We're very mindful of how we sample those people. We want not to be an overrepresentation. How we sampling technique could be like we cluster, for example, all different type of age groups who have used both Uber and Uber Eats. And so this is like one, like, cluster based on age and who have used both. And so, and kind of get their satisfaction score, compare it to only using Uber and see that we have actually improved customer value. Like we take the same sample of age groups and then, but who have not used Uber Eats and who have just used Uber, and see if the satisfaction score has improved with customers who are using both. I think number one, designing a survey and taking satisfaction score from that survey. The other customer value, I think the other metric that could inform customer value would be, a lot of times at the end of ordering food, or at the end of ordering or taking a ride, a lot of time the customers are indicating like how it went, or how it really depends. I'm not too sure how Uber is doing right now, but they do ask how would you like to rate your ride and how would you like to rate your ordering experience. And so I think just doing a median rating per users for both of them, Uber Eats and Uber Rides, just kind of seeing that how how what is our median rating per user, and just understanding how where we stand, and looking at benchmarking it against other competitive like DoorDash and Lyft, and seeing are we giving more value than if that data is available, or just just seeing that what is the average or what is the median rating per user for each of these services. I think these are my two candidate metrics for now to understanding if customers are finding value in using both or either of these. And revenue, I think revenue for the business would be the next metric that I would sort of focus on after
Hmm.
this would be like, I think, of course, in a given time period, whether it is quarterly, monthly, the total revenue the business made, the total revenue share per, whether it is Uber Eats or through Uber, what is the contribution to the total revenue? What is the revenue, median revenue per user? And I'm using median here because average is very, very prone to outliers. And we
Hmm.
want to measure the central tendency, or we want to measure more of what the average user is doing, or most common user is doing, and not the outliers. So I'm
Gotcha.
using median here. So for revenue per user in a given time period, whether it could be a month or it could be a year, just to know. And then how many unique, when I'm doing revenue, median revenue per customer or user from Uber Eats and from both, like what is from Uber Eats and what is from Uber as a like a driving app, and then really understanding how many unique customers we have on the platform, or maybe just customers, not unique, we have on the platform, both sort of helping us to know, okay, how many users are actually there for Uber Eats and Uber the Rides app, and then what is the median revenue per user for both of them, to kind of get to know how many customers are using and how much are they spending, and to really understand if this is contributing to success in terms of revenue.
Would that have to be with us having prior understandings and like forecasts of success in terms of revenue, or would we be specifically just kind of looking at a number and seeing some sort of growth rate that we want to achieve, right? Like, are we actually forecasting this and trying to hit it, or like kind of how do we compare those numbers to kind of make
Yeah.
sure that we know it's success?
Perfect. I think that's a lovely question. I think numbers by themselves don't tell us whether they're success or not. It's very important
Hmm.
to benchmark. And I think, well, we could take some historical data and kind of bench. So, for example, if we have a lot of Uber rider app data and sort of how it has generated revenue, Uber Rides app. I'm sorry, not
Yeah.
rider, and we can forecast like what Uber rides kind of based on whatever, whether it is what regression or other numerical predictive algorithms. So I do think we can forecast. I feel Uber Eats is a new business, so we will have to, like, firstly we'll have to define Like if we want to be better, or at least 50% of Uber rides, or some business, we have in the beginning, I feel we'll have to use business judgment more than data to come up with a benchmarking methodology. And I think once we are into it and the data has stabilized in terms, no more spikes and downfall in terms of how many number of users who are using, then we can use forecasting data techniques. But I think in the beginning we'll have to use like business judgment to come up with like, okay, our rides app has generated this much revenue per users and these many customers and this overall revenue. Can we hit 50% of this in the first 3 months of launching Uber Eats, something like that? I think I'll go about it like this, in
Gotcha.
using
Okay.
business judgment in the first, and then actually after I have some more data, I'll use like a data science approach, like actually a algorithm to come up with forecasting.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Great. And then our last metric that I know that you mentioned was around potentially just overall engagement on the
Yes.
platform. So
Yes.
how would we kind of measure success that way?
I think engagement is any user action that sort of is like, is this what user action that sort of you incite as a service, and how. So I think engagement has two parts to it: how frequent and how much. Like
Mm-hmm.
understanding that, and then the other part is which user action you think is valuable for the business that you
Yeah.
want the users to take. So I think firstly, understanding what user actions are important to the business that we must measure, and then how much and how often. I think then it can really give a complete picture of what is engagement looking like. So how many, and of course, how many users, how what was the action, what was the frequency, and what was like the intensity, how much and how often. So I think one of the, based on these, like some metrics that come to my mind would be like, for example, median number of orders per user on Uber Eats. And so that will be like how much people are using, what's the median number of orders per user, and then average or median days of use per user in a given time period, like how many days. So you may be ordering, like you may be, how many times are you ordering, so that'll be more like frequency, median number
Yeah.
of days per user. And then just like how many users we have using the platform, like Uber Eats as a platform. This to me can be a engagement. All these three metrics can give a complete picture of what's going on, I feel.
Gotcha. Okay. Which one would you prioritize the most out of all of those as your kind of like metric to watch?
I think metric to watch would be number of orders per user. I think if it's trailing down a lot, it means it would be indicative of so number of orders per user, and I think number of customers both. So for example, I think if we are in the beginning of rolling out Uber Eats, there would be many customers who are going to just try it once. And so order
Yeah.
per user can be very small. And as we go into more maturity of the product, it could, I expect it to stabilize at a higher value than it started with. And so I think I'll have to watch both of them. What is the median order per user, and what is the number of users actually on the platform, to get to really know what's going on. And then after I feel that we have rolled the product into certain, like it has been in use for certain months, then really go ahead and just focus on what is the number of orders per user, and we feel that the number of customers has stabilized, and we don't have too much, because ultimately we want the experience of ordering to be great for existing customers. So we just don't want to keep acquiring and not retaining anybody. So I feel that in the beginning, we'll have to see both number of customers and number of orders per user. But after we have acquired sufficient number of customers, we should focus on number of orders per user median.
Gotcha. That makes sense, right? Because it's we're first acquiring the users, and then we want to see if we can extend their kind of retention curves with us as an
Yes.
organization. And if we can consistently year over year, right, that
Yes.
means that we're improving our overall engagement and
I agree.
stickiness with our app. But obviously, there's a lot of competitive pressure in this space as
I
well,
agree.
right? So it's a lot about kind of finding out what that like long term maybe
Yeah.
plateau is for the business.
I agree.
um, especially since there's not much more innovation you can kind of do in that space.
Yes.
I'd assume at this point.